For more local podcasts, check out more shows from Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network.
Hype Network presents.
Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the MTG Show Podcast.
If you want to learn something new or useless about the world around you, why don't you try listening to the Banny Podcast Reflushed on Spotify, Anchor, or any podcast app that you use?
Okay, it's Friday. You know what that means. Welcome to the MTG Show Podcast year-end special episode of the podcast. This is the Bash Awards 2021. Ito guys, sorry talaga sa naniniguro kasi ako kasi ayoko na magkamali. Ilang beses ko nang tinig itong episode. Wow. Ang kapal pa na mukha eh. Ito, of course, episode number 82, final episode of the year. So, sobrang flattered ako na we're going to do this episode, final episode of the year, definitely in a big way. So, guys, para sa kalaman nyo, bakit ako may ganito? Kasi tradition na to sa pod. So, last year, ginawa ko rin to. Kaya lang, yung last year, mas comprehensive siya, mas expanded na yung format na. Ito, medyo kailangan ko siyang i-enhance para sa mas magandang ikot nitong podcast awards na to. So, kumbaga, mas maganda na yung dito, ikot. And ang maganda pa dito, buong taon na tayo nag-check ng ating mga entries for this year's Bash Awards. So, it's a good one. Maganda ang 2021 natin for wrestling, from Thunderdome to smaller amount of crowd to sold out arenas in some episodes. And now we're getting 2022. Baka bumalik na naman yun. Pucha. Kasi dumating na si Omicron variant. I hope hindi na ganong magulo yung business and everything sa US. Pero sige, let's get down to business. So basically, i-reveal na natin on this episode kung ano yung mga winners or kung sino yung mga winners doon sa ating Bash Awards 2021 na inyong pong binoto. And of course, yung aking top 4, the superstar, the woman, the tag, and the match of the year is akin. Pero yung sa poll nyo, I'm going to respect the poll pa din. Yung sa match of the year nasa poll nyo, yung nasa poll, tatanggapin natin yun. Pero ito tayo kasi kailangan natin i-break yung tie dito mamaya. I-explain ko mamaya sa portion na yun kung bakit kailangan natin mag-break ng tie. And ako na magbe-break ng tie nun para sa inyo. Okay. For this week's pod, definitely we're not going to do smaller. Hindi ako mag-news gaano. Instead, we're going to do news bits. No? Konting news lang. Umpisa tayo sa news na agad. So, si Kevin Owens, he signed a extension with WWE. So, it means hindi niya siya makikita sa AEW for now. And according sa Fightful, nag-sign siya ng contract na multi-year. It means hindi natin mabibilang ko ilang taon siya magtatagal sa WWE unless si Owens mismo ang mag-break ng kanyang contract agreement. And sinabi din ni SRS ng Fightful, baka sa 2024 din mag-expire yung contract ni MJF. According kasi sa SRS, kay SRS, na kinonfirm din na dagdag din natin dito, medyo connected kasi. WWE and those two networks, Fox and USA, is looking for MJF. Dinaanan sa MJF. Pero dahil din sa success niya right now. Pero I don't think MJF is going to WWE right now because of his big success in AEW. But malay natin in the near future. Medyo na-connect ko siya sa news ni Kevin kasi si Kevin Owens recently he signed a extension nga to stay with the company. And ano pa yung makikita natin in the next few years for KO. So I think let's start with a WWE Championship run for KO. And then siguro down the road baka magkaroon din siya ng tag team partner or tag team title run. Maganda yan for me. And then baka ano pa yung maasahan natin sa kanya in the next few years na mag-i-stay siya sa WWE, which is a pretty good stuff if ako tatanungin niyo. Okay, let's continue with the regular programming. Small bits ulit tayo. Pag-usapan natin yung 60-minute match for that AEW Championship between Bryan Danielson and Hangman Adam Page. For me, the 60-minute match is it's too much for me. I don't know, guys. Meron akong dalawang perspective dito. Number one is sakto lang. May sense kasi ayaw naman natin matalo agad si Adam Page. And at the same time, ayaw din natin makita na talo si BD, Bryan Danielson. So it's kind of makes sense to me na lagay na lang natin draw ulit. Kaya lang draw na naman si Bryan Danielson. Ito na ba yung new way of losing sa AEW? Because yun ang nakikita ko, to be honest. Sorry guys. Yan ang nafe-feel ko right now. And feeling ko sa Battle of the Belts, probably next year, baka doon nila gawin ulit yung rematch. Kaya lang ang dating sa akin nun, di na ganong exciting yung dating sa akin. Kaya come on, parang nag-iiba yung nag-iiba yung vibe pag pinag-uusapan natin Bryan Danielson tsaka si Adam Page. Kaya lang pag dumating na yung part na yun, hindi na gano'n nakaka-excite na, lalo na i-rematch ulit, tapos gano'n ulit ang scenario. Do you think may excite pa tayo? Of course not. sobrang dali nung scenario. Hindi na ako gano'n na-excite pag gano'n. Okay, sige. Pag-usapan pa natin ng konti. So, Raw. Let's go to Raw. And basically, Bobby Lashley is now part of the Triple Threat. Now for the 4-way match for the WWE Championship on day 1. So, ngayon, yung match is Seth Rollins versus Big E, the champion, versus Kevin Owens versus Bobby Lashley in a fatal 4-way match. We don't know if that's a fatal 4-way elimination match, but I don't think na gagawin nila yun. Sobrang hard mag-predict for now. But di rin naman ako gagawa ng predictions episode dito eh. So, ang plano ko na lang is we're going to pulverize every pay-per-view na mangyayari sa January 1 to 8. Kasi yun ang line-up natin eh. So, we have day 1 on January 1, January 2, January 4 is Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. Sa 5 is Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. And then January 8 is yung day 3. And then Hard to Kill. Kaya sobrang kailangan natin subaybayan yun. Plus, yung Evil sa January 4 din sa NXT. And then yung Battle of the Belts as well sa AEW since yun ay TNT show pa din. Meanwhile, ang masasabi ko lang, minsan siya for me, adding Bobby Lashley to the equation para mas lumaki yung threat kay E. Kaya lang, parang ang random ng pasok eh. Parang nag-feud sila tapos out of nowhere papasok si Big E ay si Lashley. It's kinda reminds me of Fastlane 2018 na halos every week may iba't ibang talent na pumapasok. Parang habang tumatagal din nagiging exciting. Understandable magiging maganda yung match. However, the build-up is kinda parang disappointing yung pagbe-build nila ng stories about that. Ayun. And finally, final story of the week. So, according sa mga sources natin din, dagdag din natin to. Sobrang importante kasi. So, we're going to get Nagata on night 1 sa Wrestle Kingdom. Night 1. So, January 4. It's so nice to see that match, to be honest. And ira-rundown natin ng konti yung mga matches for Wrestle Kingdom. Yung mga kaabang-abang. So, night 1 is obviously the main event is Shingo Takagi versus Okada for the IWGP belt. Heavyweight title na hawak ni Shingo. And then, yung ano ba? If I remember, dun gaganapin yung Rambo. And then, Fatal 4-Way on the next day. And meron pa atang isang title match. I don't remember. Plus the match ni... hindi sinagata ba yun? Hindi yata sinagata yun eh. Hindi yata sinagata. Sorry guys. And then night 2, yun, doon gaganapin yung ilang matches like yung Naito versus Jeff Cobb. Wow, that's a good match na dapat natin abangan next year. Definitely a good match. And then main event of night 2 is yung mananalo sa night 1 main event versus Will Ospreay for the title. Of course, yun ang usapan dito. And then the final 4-way for the KOPW, King of Pro Wrestling thing. Ewan ko, ba't may ganito pa din? Okay. Plus, dito na rin, ito take place. I think it's night 1 or night 2. Night 2, na. Dito sa night 2, gaganapin yung Stardom match. But this time, saan na siya? Main card na siya. Kasi recently, habang 2019 nata, nasa dark matches lang. And now, sa 2022, since ito ay 50th anniversary ng New Japan, we're getting Stardom on the main card. Ewan ko, yun nga reason. And then night 3, probably kung papakinggan niyo tong episode na to ng Friday, malamang na-announce na tong lineup for day 3. And that's in New Japan versus Noah, of course, for night 3. And siguro pag napakinggan niyo tong episode na to, alam niyo na yung kung mangyayari. Probably update ko na lang kayo sa mga social media platforms ng podcast. And yeah, basically yun lang for our podcast news. Ang tawag dito, news bits, man. Basta yan, news bits lang. Kunyari, parang nag-recap lang tayo on everything what's going to happen in the next few days. Hindi na ako magagawa ng Raw, NXT, SmackDown recap because you can find everything on other podcasts. And yun na nga, unfortunately, ito na nga yung huli kong episode ngayon taon. Tapos, I'm going to do that stuff. No, it's not going to work on me this week. Before we go to our first commercial break, extended pala yung sale ng Lazada. And if you want to shop on Lazada, please use my link. That's podlink.co/6gs. Again, that's podlink.co/6gs. Wala kayong babayaran kahit ano for using my link. And I swear makakatulong kayo here in the podcast if you're going to use my link. So thank you for that if you're going to use that. So we're going to take our first commercial break. And when we come back, mag-uumpisa na tayo sa Bash Awards 2021. And for now, let's check our other ka-podcast here on Pipe Network.
Gusto niya bang malaman kung paano kami nakikipag-collab sa mga brands in the MTG Show Podcast? We use Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast. If meron kang podcast, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code DMTGShowPod to get full control on how you monetize your show regarding of its size. Again, sign up now at podmetrics.co and use my code DMTGShowPod. If you're an advertiser who wants to collab with us, head on over to advertiser.podmetrics.co and fill up the form. Again, Podmetrics, the easiest way to monetize your podcast.
Mainit na diskusyonan,
Masarap na kwentuhan,
malinamnam na usapan,
at nakakagising na balitaktakan.
parang kape lang. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Rhea Angeline.
Join us in our conversations at Coffee na Lang Dear Podcast.
So we're back on the podcast. So it's time for the batch 1 of our Bash Awards 2021 announcements. So it's gonna be, di naman siya ganun kaaba, no? Ay, ito 20 entries to 20 plus stuff that we need to discuss and to reveal the winners. Ito para maging transparent, ipopost ko yung results ng poll probably by Saturday. Saturday na, matik na yun. And then, ang gagawin ko na lang, itatali natin doon kung ano yung naging finish ng ating polls para lang maging transparent sa inyo. And then, yung recap ng ating Bash Awards 2021. Ipopost natin siya probably by Saturday. Yun. So, yun na. Okay, so let's start with the bang. So, pwede mo na ba sabihin? Umpisa na natin sa Wrestler of the Year. So, sobrang slobberknocker na itong announcement na to. Ito, oo, ginawa ko din siya last year, itong format na to. And, hindi na siya bago sa inyo, yung format na to. So, sige. We're going to reveal 4 names. 4 names for the Wrestler of the Year. Because kahit sino naman sa 4 na to, pwedeng maging Wrestler of the Year definitely sa kanilang mga promotions. But definitely, there's only one. Meron isa na para sa akin ay nag-stand off sa lahat. Mamaya natin siya i-reveal sa end before we end this episode. Ito. Para lang maging transparent sa inyo, ang basis ng aking picks na to is number 1, activity. Naging active siya on wrestling this year 2021 once a week or every pay-per-view. Ayan. So, nagre-wrestle siya every pay-per-view, nag-a-appear siya every week, or at least every pay-per-view. So, applicable yun sa pagpili ko na to. Number 2, accomplishments and championships. Kung may malaki bang accomplishment na nakuha or championships, yun. Yan ang isa pa nating pagbabasihan. And last, number 3 is yung pagsama sa ating mga picks of the week. Kung nasasama ba siya doon sa ating picks doon, and yun naging basis natin for the ipagpili natin for this year's Bash Award. So, different siya kumpara last year. Pero wala we need to do this para lang maging fair sa inyo. And maging transparent sa inyo. And ito, hindi ko talaga to sinama sa poll nyo. Pero sige, para maging transparent din tayo, babasahin ko din yung results ng round 2 ng poll para maging fair. Ano? Sige, start tayo sa akin, yung mga pinik ko. I think the wrestler of the year, ito pinili ko 4 to. Number 1, Roman Reigns from WWE, AEW, Kenny Omega, Japan, Shingo Takagi, and others. So others, NWA, Impact, Ring of Honor, so forth and so forth. And my final pick for the wrestler of the year is Moose. So again, ulitin natin, Roman Reigns, Kenny Omega, Shingo Takagi, and Moose. So yun, wrestler of the year. And then proceed tayo sa comeback. Comeback of the year. So comeback of the year, sobrang dami nag-comeback this year. Definitely, dami nag-comeback sa company. Ito, sige. Bago ko i-reveal yung winner, siguro jinx muna natin kasi medyo obvious naman. I-rank natin to from 1 to 5 since nare-reveal ko din naman mamaya kung di yung nanalo sa poll. Sige ako, i-reveal ko muna yung akin. No? Para maging transparent. So, number 3, I think it's John Cena. For me, hindi naman ako nag-expect na magre-return si John Cena. Nag-expect na ako though. Pero, the vibes na naramdaman natin, although Cena is worth only 1 match, which is at SummerSlam. Para sa akin, iba pa rin yung feeling na John Cena yung nag-return parang ganun. Yung mindset ng fans and mindset ko na din. Number 2, definitely it's Brock Lesnar. For me, the second coming of Brock Lesnar is so fucking good. If you're watching SmackDown, man, focus on Brock aside from Roman Reigns. Brock Lesnar is on best shape on his fucking life. And episodes of SmackDown since August is my proof of honor. Yun ang dapat nyong panoorin na episodes for SmackDown, I swear. Maganda yung mga stuff ni Brock. And the match from Crown Jewel is not bad. Okay lang for me. And number 1 doon sa ating rankings, and ito rin yung nanalo sa ating Believer's Choice sa ating comeback of the year. Hindi naman po obvious. It's CM Punk. So okay, 2021 is definitely one of the year of CM Punk. The year of CM Punk here in AEW. Marami na siya nagawa. And yung mga notable spots ni CM Punk, number 1 is the match versus Darby. Number 2 is the current feud versus MJF. Number 3 is feud versus Eddie Kingston. That's a good stuff then. And yung mga matches niya sa Rampage. The Rampage matches is pretty damn good. And for me, satisfied naman ako sa mga naging stuff ni Punk so far. Except dun sa except dun sa heel run niya last week. I think that's last week. Okay, so our comeback of the year is obviously CM Punk. Okay, let's move on to gimmick. Ito, iba naman ang basis ko dito. Mamaya i-explain natin. Ang basis ko dito is number 1, kailangan nakikita siya lagi or parang nangyari siya ngayon, 2021 din, or nag-rise on 2021. So, valid pa din. And yeah, yun lang yung dalawang basis natin for the gimmick of the year. And the worst gimmick of the year is almost the same. Yung mga gimmick na hindi tayo na-satisfy on this year. So, sige. ito yung nominees natin. So we got Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, Nikki ASH, the almost a superhero, Berkat Kit Lee, Tiansha gimmick ni Xia Li, and then Gladiator, tama ba? Gladiator ni Karrion Cross, and the Happy Corbin gimmick by Happy Corbin / Baron Corbin. Gladiator. Basta yan. Ah, okay, let's start with the gimmick of the year. It's kind of obvious. Ito, sobrang obvious na ito. So our gimmick of the year is none other than Roman Reigns. Okay. Okay, ito. Explain ko muna sa inyo yung naging basis natin sa nominees itong gimmick and worst gimmick. Okay. So, AEW, ako kasi medyo nahihirapan ako mag-distinguish ng mga gimmicks ng AEW. So, it's kinda understandable naman. Na? Sobrang understandable na di ako gaano magde-determine ng nominees from AEW, but gimmicks kasi ng AEW is pretty damn good. Kaya lang, medyo meron akong napapansin na siyempre, di sila mahilig mag-justify ng mga gimmicks sa AEW. So that's why di ako gaano nakapaglagay ng categories or nominees from AEW on worst and gimmick of the year natin dito sa Bash Awards. Ayan. Again, gimmick of the year is Roman Reigns. And then the worst gimmick of the year, no doubt about it, is Karrion Cross, the Gladiator gimmick. Tandaan niyo ba nung after maging NXT champion si Karrion Cross, nagsuot na siya ng parang mask na mukhang bungo something. Gladiator, motherfucking Gladiator. Ako sobrang naiinis ako dun sa mask na yun. Kahit kayo siguro, di ko na kailangan i-explain dito sa program kung ano yung feeling doon sa mask na yun. Basta kung ano yung masasabi nyo, sabihin nyo sa iba natin pagkakataon. But I swear, ito yung pinaka-pangit na gimmick for 2021. Okay, isa pa. Tuloy tayo sa ating moment of the year. Sige, bago tayo mag-commercial break. So, moment of the year. Sige, ito. Ito yung mga nominees natin. So, the CM Punk debut at First Dance, the Pinnacle Formation, the Revolution 2021, the Epic Fail moment at the main event, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair's main event match at WrestleMania. That's a pretty good one. Jay White's sudden appearance at Slammiversary 2021, Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson debuts at All Out 2021, Hangman Adam Page's win at AEW Full Gear, Christian's WWE return, and the ending of Balor and Reigns match from Extreme Rules 2021. Sige. Our moment of the year. Moment of the year is obviously the CM Punk thing. No doubt. Wala na akong kailangan i-regret that. The CM Punk debut at AEW Rampage. I swear that is one of the best moments this year. The worst moment of the year is the Extreme Rules outcome. So it's a Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor stuff from this year's Extreme Rules. And for me, it's just a big disappointment. Sobrang laking disappointment nito in general sa match. And ito lang yung kaisa-isang Extreme Rules match of the night na hindi natin gano'n na-justify on this year's ER. And the match, wala na din na siya na gano'n nasundan. Sobrang Pangit kasi. Okay, ayan. Sige. Let's move on sa pang category bago tayo mag-commercial na talaga. So we got the stable of the year. So here are the nominees for the stable of the year. So number 1 is New Day, The Bloodline, Inner Circle, and then the Pinnacle, LIJ from New Japan, and Bullet Club from LIJ. From LIJ, New Japan, and Impact. Okay. Our stable of the year 2021 is obviously the Bloodline. Wala nang iba. Bloodline lang yung talagang umangat this year 2021 in terms of stables. Honorable mention, the Elite. The Elite. Kaso hindi sila ganong sasapawan kasing Elite kaya hindi ko na sila ganong sinama dito sa list. And yun ang reason ko kaya di ko na ganong sinamang Elite dito sa top 1 and 2. Pinnacle kasi sobrang laki din ng run nila aside from the MJF versus Jericho feud. Yun ang isa sa mga factors. That's why we put Elite. Pinnacle rather than Elite. At Elite kasi medyo mas nag-focus sila sa main thing. Abangan nyo mamaya bakit. Okay, for now, let's check our other podcast here on Pipe Network.
Catch the Pizarro Tales weekly as we tackle issues about education and share experiences about teaching. Hosted by Jay Australia, available on your favorite podcast platforms.
We're back on the pod. And let's continue with our Bash Awards 2021. But before we continue, I want to invite all of you guys na since malapit na ang New Year and Christmas, of course, you can buy everything on Shopee. And yung mga pangregalo nyo sa darating na Pasko since it's 8 days before Christmas, please use my link for Shopee. That's podlink.co/bhx. Again, that's podlink.co/bhx. Okay, let's continue with our Bash Awards 2021. Okay. Doon na tayo sa weekly show of the year. So, weekly show of the year, it's almost the same as last year. But the difference for this year is merong Rampage. So, it's Raw, NXT/2.0, SmackDown, Impact, Rampage, and Dynamite. Okay. It's kinda obvious. Ewan ko, I think nanalo din to last year. No? Nanalo din ba to last year? Nanalo din to last year. So, our weekly show of the year is none other than Dynamite of All Elite Wrestling. So, no doubt about it. So, i-rank natin from 1 to 5 based on my own preference. Tong 5 companies na to, 5 weekly shows na to. So, Raw is on the bottom. Wow, is beyond the bottom. And then, safe to say NXT is on the next. And then Impact, Rampage, SmackDown, AEW, Dynamite. Pero hit and miss din ng Dynamite eh. Pero sige, ito na. Yun na yung preference ko. Dynamite on top para sa akin. And then, the worst weekly show of the year is AEW. Wait lang. AEW ba? It's Monday Nitro by WWE. Wait. Kailangan po natin i-pull to? Kasi sobrang obvious eh. Ito legit. But ito lang na-realize ko bigla. Ba't pinol pa natin to? Sobrang obvious naman na. Okay, sige. Continue na natin. So, Company of the Year. So, ito yung participating companies. So it's WWE, AEW Impact, New Japan, and Ring of Honor. Okay, so thank you Ring of Honor by the way, and goodbye for now. Okay, let's continue. Uh-huh. Our company of the year 2021, of course, based on the Bash Awards. Believer's Choice 2021 is All Elite Wrestling. So, very obvious. Sobrang obvious na para sa akin. Na sobrang obvious nito. WWE is on its shit way of building the talents, building the weekly shows. Sobrang crap niya for me. And then Impact. Impact is, marami din silang nagawa this year na memorable. Especially the Forbidden Door between AEW and now New Japan and NWA. And then New Japan, marami din silang good shit sa 2021. And Ring of Honor for me is sobrang sad ko kasi Ring of Honor will take a break until April. Until April. Kaya sobrang sakit para sa akin na mawawala yung isa sa mga promotions na napapanood ko dito sa podcast. Okay. Let's move on to NXT Special of the Year. So, Special of the Year for NXT. Dami kasing special sa NXT. So, we got 4. So, NXT TakeOver, Vengeance Day, The Stand and Deliver, the In Your House 2, and the TakeOver 36. Ewan ko, sobrang obvious na din ito. But our NXT Special of the Year is the TakeOver 36. The final TakeOver ever. Yun ang ating NXT Special of the Year. And then, proceed na tayo sa pay-per-view of the year. So, itong pay-per-view of the year natin, ito yung mga pay-per-view na nare-review natin sa podcast. So, it's Wrestle Kingdom until Survivor Series. Lahat ng WWE pay-per-views andito, lahat ng AEW, lahat ng Impact, and some major shows ng New Japan. It's Wrestle Kingdom, Dontaku, and then yung Dominion sa New Japan. And then, yun lang. Yun lang kasi na pay-per-view review natin. Na buo. Na buo. Kaya yun ang ating sinama. Sa pay-per-view of the year, sobrang landslide nito. Sa ating polls, sa ating Bash Awards, sa ating, matawag dito, sa Believer's Choice 2021, our pay-per-view of the year is AEW All Out 2021. Sobrang landslide dito sa poll, sa ating poll. And sobrang naniniwala ako sa inyo on that. And then, sige. Let's start with the match of the year. Sige. Ito, bago natin i-reveal yung match of the year, gusto ko din pala mag-clarify ng stuff. Kasi tinweet ko na siya last time sa Twitter. Gusto ko mag-clarify. Yung isang mananalo dito, hindi pala sa Stand and Deliver, kundi sa TakeOver 36. So, our one of 2 winners of our match of the year is Walter versus Ilya Dragunov from TakeOver 36. Ay, gago. Alam niyo guys, ito, if ako papapiliin nyo ng match from that list, sobrang haba kasi ng list, hindi ko na kailangan i-mention lahat. But ito, for me, this match, ito yung nagtatak sa utak ko. Ito yung tumatak sa utak ko na match from WWE. And hindi ko niregret na inod ko to sa list. Although, nag-botch na ako eh. Okay, our second match of the year is the match between Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega from AEW Grand Slam. Pasensya na, sa Thunderdome pa din tayo. Kaya I had to deal with may sound effects dito sa ating studio. Okay. So, I think this match is my overall match for AEW, my favorite match, and no doubt one of my favorite matches sa AEW. And di ko niregret na sinama ko to sa list. Ano? Di ko siya talaga niregret. And then, sige, let's continue with our most underrated wrestler of the year. Eto guys, hindi ko siya nilagyan ng choices kasi kaya na ang pinapili ko. And ang lumabas sa poll, definitely nag-agree din ako dito, is the most underrated wrestler of the year is Cesaro. Man, I fucking love Cesaro. This year, 2021, Cesaro is definitely the guy na pinaka umangat pero hindi na ganong binigyan ng push ni Vince. But definitely, Walter's push, Cesaro's push is gonna be one of the best moments of this year, 2021. Meanwhile, most overrated wrestler of the year. Eto, medyo nagulantang ako. Nagulat ako dito. Eto, i-justify natin kung bakit ito yung nanalo sa ating most overrated wrestler of the year. So, our most overrated wrestler is Roman Reigns. Diniin ko pa yun. Okay, sige. I think the reason na pinili nila si Roman, I think is, wala siya lang naman yung nag-handle o nag-feature sa mga episodes ng Raw or even SmackDown. Kaya nga hindi kataka-taka na Roman. Sinasob pa din si Roman sa ating mga asses. That's why we got Roman Reigns on the most overrated wrestler of the year. Okay. So, sige. We're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to reveal your choices for wrestler, the tag, the woman, and the overall wrestler. Sa choices nyo to And then, yung ating inad na pay-per-view theme song of the year and the theme song of the year. Plus our major categories. Ito yung major categories natin, the woman of the year, the tag team of the year, and the episode of the year. So, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to do the round 3 of the Bash Awards 2021. Let's check our other podcast here on Pipe Network.
Hey folks, my name is Rajiv Doreswamy and I'm the host of The Rajiv Show. Check out The Rajiv Show at The Rajiv Show both on Facebook and Instagram, and new episodes will be released every Wednesdays. Cheers folks, and stay safe.
Okay, we're back on the Bash Awards 2021. Let's start with ito part pa din to ng Believer's Choice. Kaya sabihin ko hindi akin to. Mamaya explain natin yun sa akin. So, the wrestler of the year from that list is Roman Reigns. The tag team of the year is RK Bro. The woman of the year is Bianca Belair. The overall wrestler of the year on that Believer's Choice is Kenny Omega. Wala, mamaya na ako mag-justify pag in-explain ko na yun sa akin. Basta, wala na ako mag-justify ng reason. Okay. Since hindi ko din nasama pala sa ating poll o sa ating form, yung Rivalry of the Year, sige, ako na magbibigay ng aking Rivalry of the Year. My Rivalry of the Year is, I think ito yung pinaka-memorable para sa akin ngayon 2021. Para sa akin, sobrang nahook ako sa rivalry nila. And no doubt, di ko man siya naging favorite. Pero I think, ito yung rivalry na nahook ako. Ako mismo nahook nitong rivalry na to. So the rivalry of the year 2021 is Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair for this year. No doubt. Parang sobrang nahook ako dito sa feud nila. Honorable mentions is Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black and Seth Rollins versus Edge. Okay, move on na tayo. So we get the pay-per-view team of the year is Champion Sound from All Out pay-per-view this year. So that's a hip-hop song. Sobrang solid ng kanta na yon. Pakinggan nyo if you can. Sobrang ganda nitong Champion Sound, I swear. And then, the theme song of the year. Ito, pick ko lang to Theme song of the year is Adam Cole's AEW theme song. It's all about the boom. Song by Adam Cole. Pakinggan nyo mamaya. Pakinggan nyo during this portion. Kasi itong portion na to, lalagyan ko siya ng Spotify episode. Gagawa tayo ng enhanced episode. So, ilalagay natin yung song. Ikakat natin dito. And then, i-continue natin with the episode. So, let's listen to it.
Dear listener, have you ever had a complicated situation with someone you love? I'm not a relationship expert, but I sure have gone through a handful of ups and downs with my own relationships. So I invite you to join in the conversation in my podcast, Sincerely Yours, where we'll talk about the discreet things we do in relationships that harm us. Some may be hard to admit to ourselves, but that's the road to building healthy relationships. I hope to see you there. Sincerely yours, Maria.
I like to have a good time when I listen to my horror podcast.
Her left arm
Oh,
was
that's
chopped
so.
off.
Oh my god, really?
Caused a panic all over the
Prolonged
country.
their deaths for like months and
The
months.
frightening, alarming, real-life tales show is my horror podcast. My horror podcast. That's
Okay,
it?
pause it.
This is your scary part? Be scared and laugh hard with the frightening, alarming, real-life tales show every Friday on all major podcasting platforms. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, thank you for listening for Adam Cole's dub. It's all about the boom. And if hindi ka naka-Spotify Premium, please pakinggan nyo to sa Spotify Premium. It's only $129 per month sa Spotify. Of course, hindi to sponsored. Okay, let's continue with our next category for the Bash Awards 2021. Ito na, Episode of the Year. Episode of the Year is one of the most important categories itong Bash Awards 2021. Apparently, one of my favorite episodes of 2021 here on the podcast is tatlo. Tatlo yung naging favorite ko. Personally. Number 1 is the Rain Cruz episode. Shoutouts to Miss Rain Cruz. Sobrang solid na naging discussion namin ni Miss Rain. Back and forth, we talked about the SummerSlam. We talked about her background on professional wrestling and kung paano siya nahook sa wrestling. So, if you want to check that episode out, please check out that episode on your favorite podcast platforms. Here on Spotify. And then, pangalawa is the WWE on Fox episode with the Wrestling Podcast. It's Stancy and Romoran. So, that episode, sobrang saya ng episode na yun. Pakinggan nyo sa Spotify and Apple Podcast. Sa iba pang podcast platforms. I swear, hindi yun na magiging hunat huli namin nila Stan at ni Ro. But, sobrang memorable nung episode na yan. Pakinggan niyo siya sa mga podcast platforms. And then, yung pangatlo is my All Out 2021 review. Ito yung isa-isang solo episode sa mga naging favorite ko. And hindi ko niregret na naging favorite episode ko to of 2021. Ang weird kasi naging case asa ko dito. Sige. Ayun, so, yan lang. Ang ating episode of the year is the Rain Cruise episode. So please listen to it on Spotify and other podcast platforms pagkatapos nyo mapakinggan tong episode na to. Sige, let's continue with our major categories na. We're going to mention my picks for the woman, the tag, and the overall wrestler of the year. Okay, let's start with the woman. So, ulitin ko yung mga naging basis ko for the Bash woman side. Sige. Ito yung naging basis ko for the woman side. So, number 1, ulitin natin, activity. Kung nagre-wrestle ba siya every week o nag-appear siya every week o at least every pay-per-view. Number 2 is accomplishments or championships. And number 3 is kung nakapapasama ba siya sa ating list o sa mga picks every week, mga nakikita nyo na woman of the week, nagka-qualify yun dito sa ating category na to. So that's why ito yung pinik ko. Okay. Our woman of the year 2021 is none other than Bianca Belair. Ito pa, mga honorable mentions ko, it's Deonna Purrazzo and Britt Baker. Wala na, hindi ko na kailangan explain. Bianca's run from Royal Rumble win until WrestleMania, until SummerSlam, and her streak on pay-per-views is so fucking good, except on that SummerSlam and Crown Jewel. But regardless, it's so fucking good. And then, we got the tag team of the year. Let's straight up na natin, okay? Yung tag team of the year is the Young Bucks. Nagulantang ba kayo? Eto explain ko muna sa inyo bakit Young Bucks yung pinili ko for the tag team of the year. Tag team, do you think Jey Uso or Jimmy Uso came close on what Young Bucks did this year 2021? No. Do you think RK Bro nagawa ba nila ng mas maganda yung mga nagawa ng Young Bucks this year? No. Nagawa ba ng FTR yung mga nagawa ng Young Bucks this year? No. And nagawa ba ng New Day yung mga nagawa ng Young Bucks this year aside sa pagiging king ni King Woods? No. So that's why I choose the Young Bucks. That's the logic here. Plus, maraming solid na matches ang Young Bucks this year. Notable is the all-out steel cage match, the match between Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus Young Bucks, and may isa pa akong match na hindi ko matanda-tandaan. I think that's the match on Revolution. Yun pumapasok sa isip ko yung Revolution match. Kaya lang hindi ko talaga matandaan kung ano yun. Basta i-remind nyo na lang ako kung anong match yun. Okay. And sige. It's time for the final category for the Bash Awards 2021. It's a long run for this year's Bash Awards, but kailangan natin tapusin itong Bash Awards 2021. Sobrang memorable ng 2021. Maraming returns, maraming nag-debut, maraming umangat, maraming nilaglag, maraming namagapak. But 2021 is definitely the year of a guy who single-handedly owned the wrestling business in 2021. I swear. Walang competition sa tao na to. But I think this guy took over the world and his title runs in this year 2021. Regardless, the overall wrestler of the year is Kenny Omega. Ito, it's more on an appreciation episode na to, part na to. But I love Kenny Omega's run this year. Sobrang memorable. And kung babasehan natin yung categories and yung basis natin, kaya pinili ko si Kenny. Hindi nyo mariregret na panoorin yung mga matches niya. Notable matches ni Kenny is Rebellion 2021. Ano ba? Yung rematch na John Moxley and Kenny Omega minus the main event bullshit. And then the triple threat for the AEW title. Moose versus Kenny Omega sa Against All Odds. And then yung Slammiversary versus Sami Callihan. Plus versus Christian Cage and Rampage and on pay-per-view to? All Out 2021. So yeah, basically that's it for our Bash Awards 2021. Di ko na may mention yung mga picks ko this week. It's time to go now. Thank you for listening on this podcast for 2021. Sobrang dami nyo and appreciate ko yung mga support nyo sa podcast. And thank you for ranking me up sa podcast rankings natin. I swear, yung mga rankings na yan, nagpa-factor lang yan na maganda yung product ng podcast natin. And sa lahat na sumusuporta sa podcast, inside the wrestling community, outside of the wrestling community, I wanna say thank you for everyone who is supporting this podcast. Also, gusto ko rin mag-shoutout sa mga naging guest ko ngayon 2021. Let's start with Derv of Wrestling After Work. Thank you, man, for helping me for that New Japan episode noong March tsaka noong February dahil ng Royal Rumble. Thank you for that. And then, sila Slick at si Ivan. Si Slick nag-appear yan 2 episode this year. So, the Slammiversary episode and yung SummerSlam, yung comeback episode ko. So, sobrang memorable nung episode na yun for me. That's the longest episode of the podcast currently in 2 hours and 8 minutes. And then, Ivan of Dugout Philippines. So, wanna say thank you din kay Ivan. Kahit random na yung pagsama niya sa app na yun. And then, sino pa ba? Si Carl of the Pipe Network. Wrestling fan din yun. Kaya lang din na siya ganun nanonood ng wrestling. But still, I want to acknowledge him. And then, sino pa ba? Si Stan and si Ro of the Wrestling Podcast. Sobrang papasalamat ako sa dalawa na yun. Kina Stan, kina Ro, kina Chino of the Wrestling Pod. Hindi lang dahil sa episode na yun, kundi para sa akin, sila yung nagubog sa akin for the podcast. And kung wala rin sila, wala rin ako. I swear that. Sobrang laking factor ng wrestling sa akin dito sa podcast. And then finally, kay Rain Cruz, Miss Rain Cruz, na naging winner nga ng ating SummerSlam ring announcer contest na-interview natin. Sobrang swerte natin na na-interview natin si Rain Cruz here on the podcast. So, sobrang memorable ng episode na yun. Sana maulit. Sana maulit yung mga ganong episode na chill lang kami. Chill lang yung episode. Sana maulit talaga. And to my Pipe Network family, walang sawang salamat sa inyo. At sa lahat na nakikinig dito sa podcast, pailan man yan, wala akong pake. Basta, ilalagay na kayo. Thank you very much and see you next year for more episodes. And malapit na rin pala tayo mag 100. So sobrang nice na yung episode na 100 natin ay baka tumapat ng WrestleMania. Kaya sobrang memorable nun for me. So, yun. Sige, mag-extra na tayo. So, guys, again, thank you for supporting this podcast. Follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, Deezer, Good Pods, and on other podcast platforms that you can use on podcast listening. And then, follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, on TikTok at the MTG Show Pod. And then, check Pipe Network on all of the social media platforms. And visit pipenetwork.co for more Pipe Network shows. And then, nga pala, this week's episode of the podcast is 2 types ng episodes, no? So, one, makapakinggan nyo yung enhanced version of this episode na makapakinggan nyo lang sa Spotify. May premium ka, mapapakinggan mo siya dire-diretso. Pag wala, cut yun, probably. And then, yung isa naman sa Apple Podcast, ayan, sa iba pang podcast platforms, kaya lang hindi na enhance yun. So, para sa enhanced version of this week's episode, pakinggan nyo siya sa Spotify. Okay? And please press the bell sa Spotify para ma-notify din kayo sa mga episodes. And then, ayan, ano pa ba? Ayun, follow me on social media at AG Penera on Twitter and IG. And that's pretty much it for this year's episode. Thank you very much for the support. Stay safe, stay raso. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And see you on the next episode. And see you next year for the Bash Awards 2021. Peace, yo.
Did you know that podcasts are the new radio? You can listen to your favorite shows anytime, anywhere, on demand. Visit the Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network at pipenetwork.co to see our list of shows. And like us on Facebook to get updates on our latest episodes, events, promos, and freebies. The Pipe Network, taking podcasting to the next level.